everyone, and welcome to E-spire, education and inspiration for the digital age. Thank you for joining us, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the like button so you can be a part of this series. So today we have Jeanette Norris joining us. She's a Starbucks real estate rep, and she also works for 3 nonprofits around diversity and inclusion initiatives in commercial real estate. Thanks so much for joining us, Jeanette.
Thank you for having me, Nicole.
I'm so glad you could join us today because we are talking about what's going on in New York City's commercial real estate market. So this market had been valued around $16 trillion. And before the pandemic, it had been a boom, right? What have you been seeing lately in the market?
Yes, prior to the pandemic, retail, particularly retail brick and mortar that relies heavily on foot traffic, was already disrupted as consumer behaviors shift to online shopping, e-commerce. But in this pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic, continues to force retail stores, putting downward pressures on rents. On sales. I'm sorry, and retailers are forced to close.
Right, it's really been horrible what we're seeing. I mean, you walk along Fifth Avenue and Madison Avenue, and there are all these places that are, for lease, tenants moving out. Looking at this trend, do you see this as being a short-term trend or a long-term trend of these retailers shifting out of the market, that brick and mortar market, and moving more of their market online in e-commerce?
I see. The longer we stay in this pandemic, the greater chance that consumer preferences will shift.
Do you think that at this point the slowdown has been reflected in price per square footage? What are you seeing in the real estate, in the commercial space right now in the city?
Yeah, renegotiations are warranted during these times. The United States is facing an unemployment rate of over 40 million. It's even with the lockdown lifted, people are still staying home and they're not going out. They're not purchasing items normally at their retailers. Depending on the lease, lackluster retail sales may warrant for a reduction in rent. And if a middle ground cannot be found between the landlord and the tenant, then retailers have no choice but to close. These aren't easy decisions to make. Now more than ever, it's essential for retailers to know their leases, specifically looking at language pertaining to how the shopping center is supposed to be maintained by the landlord, co-tenancy provisions, questioning the strength of the retail synergy and anchor tenants. All these lead to like uncomfortable conversations and directions where no retailer wants to go. And the longer that we stay in this pandemic, the more consumer preferences will shift more towards online shopping. This affects the paradigm that retail models were previously built on, as we're no longer able to project foot traffic patterns.
Right, that's a really good point about foot traffic patterns, because I heard reports coming out that there is a decline obviously in foot traffic because even though that we are at the beginning stages of the reopening, people don't really want to spend a whole lot of time in these retailers, and they are seeing a decline in foot traffic. However, they did say that that in general, the purchases, they are closing on the purchases. So if people do come in, they are closing on purchases. So as far as, let's shift a little bit to some of the retail locations, shift from that aspect to talking a little bit about some of the restaurants. Now the restaurants are opening up. It's the really early stages with restaurants. Some are experimenting with different layouts to help maintain social distancing. criteria. What do you see happening in that space? Because we've seen a couple of big names closing in particular in the New York market, in the New York City area. What do you think is going to happen in that space? Are they going to shift to other uses of space, of restaurants places that had been restaurants?
Yeah, we're going to see new concepts replace old ones. You can expect the new concepts and the old ones that survived the pandemic to have a more digital component. The stores that retailers choose to keep open may have reduced hours, at least right now before pre-vaccine. Retailers are adjusting, refitting their space for the near-term purposes, coming up with different layouts. Like, hats off to the retailers that are selflessly and taking dramatic steps to prevent the spread of the virus by offering delivery and curbside pickup. It's a different new normal. For apparel, the new normal may consist of reducing fitting rooms, holding merchandise that is tried on for 24 hours, a plexiglass between the cashier and the customer, dividers at checkout, and no contact digital payment options.
Right, the no contact digital payment option is really going to be, it seems like that's going to be a wonderful way to transition with the pandemic, also to the digital economy. Let's look at also the fact that, you know, a lot of the commercial real estate is also office space. And like, take for instance, Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg, he announced that he projects his company will have 50% or more of the staff permanently working from home in the next 5 to 10 years. Now, you know, this is well beyond an extended time limit that many of the companies here in New York have announced. They were just putting a temporary block on in-office work and working from home. Do you think these kind of moves will put pressure on rents in the city, particularly in Manhattan? And do you expect it to be, once again, a long-term trend or just a temporary blip in the real estate commercial space?
Customers have adapted to new behaviors and in many cases may stick and become permanent, like working from home, WFH, this new acronym. That's part of our new normal vernacular. Companies that are in financial distress due to lackluster sales or the economic crisis that we're in may choose to allow their office employees to work permanently from home. This reduces office costs, and also alters the paradigm that previous retail models were previously built on. So that's causing a shift in foot traffic patterns that were previously around office development and may now have to be around emerging suburban office development as people continue to work from home.
Right, the new normal. So thanks so much for sharing with us the update on the market. But one thing I don't want to forget to ask you is, what do you recommend to someone who wants to go into real estate now? There might be an opportunity, right, with falling prices right now for people who want to enter the field. What would you recommend?
Yeah, there might be opportunity. If you have money during an economic crisis, then this is the opportunity for you. Mortgage rates are at historic low, staggering around 4%. Now is the time to refinance, to buy property if you're in a position to do so. And properties get snatched up though when it's like that. People who have money jump at these opportunities during these times.
Great. Thanks so much, Jeanette, for meeting with us, and thank you for joining us here on E-spire, education and inspiration for the digital age. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thank you. See you next time.
Thank you, Nicole. Bye.
Thank you.